Hey guys, how's it going? Today I want to look at two netbooks slash UMPCs that I haven't looked at for a very long time. So this is the Fujitsu U820 Lifebook. This is the predecessor of the Fujitsu UH900, which I did a video on a few days ago. And this one actually came out in 2009, and here we have the Sharp Netwalker, which is technically called a smart book. Yes, there's something called a smart book, and it's a name or a term used for a netbook that basically ran on ARM CPUs. So that's actually pretty interesting as well, and it ran on Linux as well. So these are two of my more rare UMPCs, I guess, and I haven't really looked at these two since probably like 2015 or 2016, so it's been a few years, so I wanted to come back to it, do more like a detailed overview. So we're going to look at these two. They're not especially related other than the fact that they came out in the same year. They're both in 2009, and they're both around the same size. Like, they're really small and everything, and I guess you can consider them both UMPCs or netbooks. But anyways, I wanted to take a look at both of these. First, we're going to look at the Fujitsu Lifebook U820. So why do I have this one and I have the successor, the Fujitsu UH900? When, you know, the UH900 has better specs because it's a successor. Well, because this one is actually quite different. The form factor and design is quite different. So this, you know, Fujitsu, like I said, is a company that's not very popular in America. They're mostly known among business users, if that, right? A lot of business users probably don't even know them, but they're probably more popular in Japan than in America. And they do have this series of Lifebook business laptops that they sell in the US still to this day. It's just not as popular. But back then they made quite a few unique netbooks or UMPCs, I would say. And this was one of them. So this is convertible. So if I open it up, and the screen basically swivels around 180 degrees and then folds down. So this was the old convertible design before the Lenovo Yoga kind of popularized the Yoga 360 degree hinge design. That's the type of convertible design that we have pretty much nowadays on most convertible laptops. But back in the day, this was the convertible design used by most convertible computers back then, is the swivel design. And I remember back in university I had a Gateway CX2724 that had this design as well. Most of the tablet computers back then and the convertible PCs back then, and I'm talking about before the iPad, so we're talking about resistive touchscreens with styluses and Intrig and Wacom pens and stuff like that. Most of them use this style, this swivel style. And honestly, I think I kind of like this one. I kind of like this kind of style. You don't really see it anymore, because it probably puts too much stress on the hinge. But the advantage of this style is that you can just quickly show someone something, like say, you know, I have a presentation or something, I can just quickly show someone something and then just quickly rotate back. So it's very, very simple, very easy to do like that. Or if I just have it like off at an angle, I can still look at this, right? So it's a bit more flexible in my opinion than the Yoga hinge. Anyways, a little bit more about this PC. Like I said, came out 2009, part of the U series. So the specs of this machine, it's running an Intel Atom Z530, which is a 1.3 gigahertz processor, I believe. So this is the first generation Intel Atom. So be aware that Intel Atoms are very slow. Even more modern Intel Atom chips are slow. So when talking about first generation Intel Atoms, like the N270 and Z530 and Z520 and stuff like that, it's really, really slow, right? Like, this is basically what was powering a lot of the netbooks back then. And a lot of complaints, you know, that was the main problem with netbooks, is that they were too slow. And the Intel Atom CPU is a big reason why the netbooks back then were so slow. Right, the first generation Intel Atoms, incredibly slow, right? Like, they were slower than the Intel Pentium M, which was the first mobile chip actually, and I think that came out in 2005. So you're talking about a processor that's slower than a processor that came out in 2005, right? So think about that. Display is a 5.6-inch WXGA 1280 by 800 display, and then it's got 1 gig of RAM and 120 gigs of storage space, and weighs about 1 pound, a little bit more than 1 pound. So it's quite a small computer, very interesting design. The keyboard here is actually meant for thumb typing, so it's just too small to be meant to be used on a desk or a lap, right? It's just the keys are too small. You basically have to thumb type it. I guess the closest comparison I have for a modern day UMPC is the GPD Micro PC. So GPD Micro PC, same thing, right? It's just incredibly small, this is probably actually the smallest UMPC I have, besides the Vero X, right? The Vero X and the Okio Model 2 are different designs though, but this is kind of the smallest clamshell UMPC I have. Actually, maybe this and the Netwalker probably just as small. Anyways, the micro PC, definitely among the smallest modern PCs that you can get. It's very hard to use, on the lap or on the table or something like that. So basically how this UMPC is meant to be used is just with your thumb. And the keyboard here is actually pretty good on the micro PC just for typing with your thumb. It's actually kind of tactile. But yeah, I guess you can kind of think of it similar to the micro PC in that sense, right? And that's, micro PC is still a little bit smaller actually. Not by much. It's yeah, micro PC is still a little bit smaller, but they're very close in size and weight. And so yeah, this is meant to be used with the thumb. I would say that Fujitsu's keyboards are not that great. This is kind of their downfall. I really do think that Fujitsu has some interesting designs, right? Like the UH900 and this one, the U820. But where they fall in comparison to other UMPCs and to Sony VAIO-Ps, things like that, is that the keyboard is really not that great. It's just the build quality and everything, the plastic build especially, is a little bit, it's below what you would expect, especially compared to the other higher end netbooks of the time, right? We're talking about like the Sony VAIO-P was probably the one I was thinking about, but Sony's laptops definitely had better build quality and just looked better and felt better than Fujitsu's UMPCs at the time. But I mean, this is pretty, for a laptop of this size, like a netbook or UMPC, like of this small size, right? That wasn't that many competitors. Sony didn't really make anything like this. The VAIO-P was a lot, wider, so it's not really directly compared to that. And then you had Viliv and UMID, which were also making UMPCs as well. But I think Fujitsu is a level a little bit above that, right? Kojinso would be another one, but those are kind of rare and hard to find. But yeah, this is the keyboard I got with the U20, and yeah, it's kind of mushy and not that great, but what do you expect? It is a computer of this size from 2009, so really not that many competitors. Okay, so the display is a resistive touchscreen display, not multi-touch, of course. This is 2009. And then you got a zoom right here, and then you got a, I think this one I might have to double check to see what these do. Not entirely sure. There's a fingerprint sensor here. Oh look, it's actually booting up because I pressed some of the buttons here. Oh, okay. Well, it's nice to know it still boots up. Okay, so we're definitely going to go into the operating system, I guess, in a few minutes. So the fingerprint sensor right here, actually that wasn't very common in computers. It wouldn't start becoming common in computers, I think, until like a few years ago actually. So this, business computers have had fingerprint sensors for a while. This was considered a business computer, so you got that. It was also on the Sony VAIO UX and a few others. And then you got the mouse nub right here. So this is actually the mouse nub, and then you got the left and right click right here. So this is definitely meant to be used with your thumb, this entire computer, just like the UH900, but the UH900 was a little bit bigger and wider than this one. So like I said, I have them both because this is a different form factor, and it's running Windows Vista Home Premium, as you can see. So I got FM here, FN buttons. Actually not sure, it just seems like more arrow keys, but I'm not really sure entirely what they do. Alright, close this for a second, we're just going to look at the ports, okay? So on the front here, you got status indicator lights, and then you got the proprietary Docker expansion port right here. This is a port replicator slot. This is actually the same one, I believe, that's used in the Sony VAIO-P and also in the UH900. So if you got the same one, then you can use it here as well. It's pretty much the same port, right? I think it can be used for both Fujitsu and Sony's, which is kind of interesting. Then on the left side, you got the microphone and headphone jack. They're actually separate. These days we only have one, but they're separate now, back then. And then you have an SD card slot, USB 2 port, Kensington lock slot, and then this is a volume, I believe, a volume kind of wheel here. So yes, this is a volume wheel you can actually use. I believe I'll have to look at that. And then on this side you have the right side, you got an AC adapter. And you have the power. This is actually a power slider switch, so I didn't actually have to use this. It looks like when I press some buttons it just turned on by itself, but yeah, this is the power slider. And then you have a dedicated Wi-Fi slider right here. So back then, especially on business machines, the dedicated Wi-Fi slider was actually pretty important. So having a hardwire switch is pretty nice here. Then look at this. You actually got a compact flash slot with I have a compact flash card in here already from Kingston. Interesting. So when I bought this computer, it actually already came with this. So it's interesting, you already have a compact flash card. So this computer came with a compact flash and also came with SD cards, so you got both options. Although compact flash is the older expansion format, of course. It can't really hold that much. Like 4 gigs, compact flash is probably like the limit. There really wasn't, you know, as time went on, more and more people went to SD cards. So compact flash really became outdated. Pretty soon after this. I think even in 2009, compact flash was kind of outdated. And then you have a removable battery right here, so you can actually remove it, you know, slide up here, so take it off like that. So something that a lot of computers don't have these days, unfortunately. Business notebooks, even business notebooks these days don't really have it. Like ThinkPads took away their power bridge, which is really kind of annoying. Anyways, let's go back to the operating system. Alright, so this is Windows Vista. Hello, Windows Vista. I've not seen you for such a long time. Okay. This is an Intel Atom processor. This is going to take a while. This is actually fairly big resolution for a screen of this size. I don't know if you guys can see well. But this is actually 1280 by 800 is actually a fairly decent size resolution for a 5.6 inch display. But yep, so definitely all these controls are left and right click, and then the FN button up here, right? This is not a usual place for an FN button, but you have it up here, and it activates the Fujitsu menu, looks like. So you can go to, see, you can do some functions here. Capture screen, pen input devices sound, Fujitsu tablet controls, control panel, tablet PC input. Yeah, okay, cool. And this is actually a touch screen, right? So I can actually, interesting. I guess I can adjust that later, but it's definitely a touch screen. It's just not behaving, it's probably not calibrated correctly, that's all. So yeah, anyways, definitely touch screen, just not calibrated correctly. And what are these two buttons right here? Looks like it just goes up and down the menu. Okay, so it looks like it's depending on the context, right? And it'll just scroll. Is that right? Okay. Function button is active. Okay. Function button. So turn that on and off. There. What if this is actually a button here? I was like, I can press it. I'm not sure it does anything. Alright, so this is to, I assume, zoom in and adjust the resolution. This one, what does this one do? Not sure. It looks like it turns on these lights here. Oh, you know what? This is interesting. Is this like kind of like a think light kind of thing? So I don't think this keyboard is backlit. And back in the day, there used to be a feature on ThinkPads called Think Light, which is actually a light that's illuminating the keyboard. This is before any keyboard backlights, and so if I press this button right here, these lights turn on, which I think is supposed to be kind of like a Think Light thing, which is supposed to illuminate the keyboards. Now that's very cool. I've not seen that feature before. And it comes down from here. So the Think Light actually came from the lid, right? But these lights actually came like not directly even illuminating the keyboard. It's like passing through the keyboard, I guess, in the same area. So that's interesting. Okay, so this kind of has like a pseudo think light thing going on. Alright, and then this button is adjusting the, let's see, adjusting the orientation. Okay, so it's actually rotating display, and I guess this is because it didn't have an accelerometer. Is that why? So I think accelerometers were not common on computers back then. Like these days you have a convertible and you turn it around, it automatically like flips the screen, right? But back then convertibles did not have the accelerometer, I don't think. Well, maybe it does. So I switch it. Okay, maybe it does. It has a webcam too. Okay, I just noticed it has a webcam as well. Looks like it does have an accelerometer. Okay, it did switch around. So I guess you have a button for manually adjusting the orientation right here. So this will be manually adjusting the orientation, and it also has an accelerometer that detects what orientation you're in. So that's really cool. I actually did not expect that. Looks like they did have accelerometers and automatically adjusting that back then. Okay, that's cool. And then yeah, this is the volume slider. Okay, so on the slide you can adjust your volume. Looks like this is from like a TV, right? Right here. You adjust it and it appears on here like a TV. Alright, that's cool. So yeah, that is the Fujitsu U820, and pretty interesting computer. I would say ahead of its time in many ways. Just I think the Intel Atom is what basically signaled the doom of this computer, because it's really hard to, even like Windows Vista with 1 gig of RAM and running Intel Atom, yeah, good luck, right? Yeah, so that's probably why a lot of these computers are like forgotten now. But I really like the design, actually. I think it's a design that maybe some manufacturers should consider coming back to sometime. I believe the even one netbook is trying to make a swivel type of convertible again with its new A1 netbook. I'm not sure when it's coming out, but apparently they're trying to bring back the swivel style display. And yeah, just having these controls, I think, is kind of unique for the Fujitsu, and that's what kind of makes it a unique kind of netbook for me. So I still keep this along with the UH900, because the UH900 is more of a traditional style pocket netbook. Well, traditional relatively, right? Whereas this one is like a little bit more unique. It's not as powerful as UH900. It's only got 1 gig of RAM, and the I think the Atom processor is the same. But yeah, it's less RAM, and it doesn't have an SSD, whereas my UH900 does have an SSD. So those are the big differences. But I do think that this one has the more unique design for sure, because this is using convertible form factor, right? And a very cool, and it's also more portable as well. So cool convertible form factor, and also smaller, more portable than the successor, the UH900. So yeah, that is the Fujitsu U820. Very, very cool computer from back then. Alright, so also in 2009, we have the Sharp Netwalker, which is even more interesting, arguably, because it is a smart book, which means it doesn't actually run on an x86 processor. It runs on an ARM processor. Now this is really interesting, because now we're talking about Apple making MacBooks with ARM processors, right? Well, it's actually been done before, right? Smartbooks have done it. So this is one example of a computer that's actually running on a Cortex A8 architecture, actually. This is running on a Freescale i.MX515 is what it says, an 800 megahertz processor that's based on the ARM Cortex A8 architecture. 4 gigs of storage, 512 megs of RAM. I think the 512 megs of RAM seems small, but then again, with Linux and with ARM processors, I don't think they require as much RAM as a typical, laptop CPU and computer. So I think that should be fine. Not running Windows, and you're not running an x86 Intel processor or something. So that's fine. And a 1024 by 600 touchscreen display, so this is actually a touchscreen as well. Alright, so this computer, even smaller than the U820, right? Yep, even smaller, and compared to the micro PC, I think, yeah, micro PC might be still smaller, but not by a lot. Not by a lot. Very, very similar in size. So definitely the Netwalker is one of the smallest computers I have. So small, so light. It's definitely like weighing like 1 pound or less, I think. Nothing on the bottom here. It doesn't look like, yeah, no removable battery or anything. So let's take a look. The ports wise, it's not gonna be a lot of ports, right? Because it's not running traditional Windows. So on the left here, you just get one USB 2 port and a headphone jack, and that's it. Nothing here on the front. And then on the right, you get one micro USB port. Is it micro? Might be mini USB port. Anyways, you got another one here. Looks like a mini USB actually. AC adapter jack, and then you get a micro SD card slot right here, which is one that you kind of like, you can open up here. It's like a tab. So you open up like here, and there's a micro SD, and that's it. I got this imported from Japan, so it's very rare to find this in America. So I guess you can consider this one of my rare both of these are actually kind of rare, but the Netwalker probably more so because it was only sold in Japan. The Fujitsus are also pretty rare, but that's just because, not because they aren't sold in America, they actually are. It's just that people usually are not aware of them, right? They're like NECs, right? Fujitsus and Vios actually sell in America as well. Just that not many people usually buy these computers. They're not as mainstream. Whereas Sharp, when was the last time you ever saw Sharp sell a computer in the US, right? Pretty much never. Sharp is pretty much exclusive to Japan. So yeah, that's why it's very hard to find any Sharp laptops here. But anyways, I got a Sharp SmartBook here from 2009, imported from Japan. That's why you see a Japanese keyboard here. So you can see like a lot of Japanese specific keys right here. Right, so the main mouse input is this optical track point right here, which is not my preferred style of input. I actually prefer to have the nub right here. That's the ThinkPad style, right? This is the same style used by One Netbook for a lot of their OneMix devices and other computers. And yeah, I personally don't really like it. It's a little bit less accurate and doesn't feel very good in the hand. Would prefer to have just a nub right here, like the Sony Vaio P has, or the ThinkPads. But this is the same style used by One Netbook. Anyways, not many computers use this style. Sharp is the only other one I know of that uses this one for computers. I think BlackBerry uses it for phones, but Sharp for computers and One Netbook. And of course you got left and right click right here. And you got, this is I think capacitive buttons here, similar to what you find on some early Android phones. So I believe these all work as well. And then the power button right here, so let's boot it up. I believe this runs Linux. Not sure what version of Linux, but let's take a look. Of course, Japanese. And it's nice that these computers still work after 11 years. They still all boot up properly, and I think I kept them in good condition. Didn't really use them that much. Basically, they've been in my storage for quite a while, and I just decided just to go over them again, because it's been a while since I've taken a look at these computers, so I figured might as well. It's been a while since I visited them. Time to revisit them and see what I think, do a more detailed overview and see what happens. So got charging lights and indicators right here. Alright, so it does have, I think this has an SSD in it. It should, because even back then, yeah, given the storage size, 4 gigs of flash storage, yeah, so it only has 4 gigs of only 4 gigs of storage space, but it is flash, which means this should be solid state, which means it should boot faster. And this is also running Linux, which means it should be more responsive as well. So yeah, this is the optical track point works, just waiting for Linux to load. I wonder what kind of Linux it runs, actually. I'm not actually quite sure. Interesting. So apparently Sharp had another dual screen netbook called the Mebius. Now if anyone knows, or if anyone knows if these are, where I can get one of those, that'd be nice. Because yeah, I've never seen one of those before. But apparently there's a Sharp Mebius dual screen netbook that also came out around the same time. Only in Japan, of course. But I've never ever seen one. So if I can't even, if this one's like hard to find, then I'm betting that the Mebius dual screen netbook, that's going to be even harder to find. But that would be a nice one for the collection as well. Anyways, looks like Linux booted, and it looks similar to Ubuntu. Let's see. Yep. So GNOME, okay, it is Ubuntu. Yep. All right. So yeah, it boots with Ubuntu, and what can I say? It's pretty snappy. I mean, it is Linux, so it's going to run faster than Windows. So even on a machine running in 800 megahertz ARM processor from 2009, it's still fairly snappy actually, not that laggy. And you can do typical Linux stuff. Okay, maybe it is slow. Not as slow as I anticipated for a computer of this age, but still, yeah, it is pretty slow sometimes. Okay, just for opening stuff and maybe getting things done. So I might have said that too early. Yeah, typical stuff. Terminal. Let's open the terminal. All right, we do typical stuff typing on this keyboard. This keyboard is okay. It's not the worst netbook keyboard I've used. It's not the best. A little bit mushy. I think it's very similar to the Fujitsu's, except the keys are a little bit wider than the Fujitsu's, I think. I guess because it's not trying to stuff as many things in here. So I don't know, the keyboard's actually pretty well sized. Actually, I'm pretty impressed given the size of this thing, that the keys are actually decently sized for the size, right? Like it's not like too small like some netbooks are and some UMPCs are. So let's do this, and equals, here's the quote. Is it up here? Yeah, I'm trying to type this. Okay, and then echo. This is just me trying to try out this keyboard basically. Okay, cool, that worked. So yeah, this keyboard's okay actually. Obviously I wouldn't use it like this. It's meant for thumb typing, just like the U820 and the micro PC. But when you use it for thumb typing, it's not all too bad. Yeah, like the keys are reasonably well sized. There's nothing like too small. I think what I don't like about some modern UMPC keyboards is they shrink some of the keys, or they move it into weird locations and stuff like that. Like, okay, here it doesn't have a tab, right? But at least the caps lock is here full size. It's not like a shrunken caps lock. Well, actually the caps lock is a secondary, okay, on here. Well, actually I prefer it being a secondary than just having a shrunken caps lock, because you can accidentally hit that very easily. Whereas here they just have it as a secondary. So I think I'd actually rather have it as a secondary. And this is basically what GPU did with the P2 Max, because the P2 Max actually removed a row, and they removed a row, but they actually mapped some secondary functions to the keys as well. So you're actually not missing any functions, it's just mapped differently. And that is all to have a more comfortable keyboard, which I actually agree with is probably the better way to go than having like a shrunken keys or something like that. Because when I use the Pocket 1, Pocket 2, the One Mix 1, some of those keys are just so shrunken. Whereas here, I think they didn't actually shrink many of the keys all too much. The shift is a little bit shrunken for sure. But all the other keys are here. It's just a lot of things that map to secondary functions here. Because they actually removed a lot of the keys from this keyboard, as you can see, to add the secondary functions. So I actually prefer that. I think it's better than having some shrunken keys. Just having secondary functions is fine. But yeah, so far that's pretty good. And of course, you know, this all works. It's actually a touchscreen supposedly, so it is. Okay. So yes, this is a touchscreen as well. So, you know, I can use my fingers. This is not a. Is this a capacitive? I don't think this is a resistive still. So you should still use a stylus maybe. But it's reasonably responsive enough, I suppose. Click on this. Yep. Yeah, it's still responsive enough. Yeah, not bad. And what else? We can try some of these buttons. So the home button, I think let's go somewhere else first. Terminal. Let's see. Go home. Yeah, it just takes you to the home screen, the desktop. Okay, so that's what that does. Just takes you to the desktop. All right, and the web browser. This one should launch Firefox. So I think you just gotta wait, and there's Firefox. So that's what that one does. Of course, as you would expect. And then Mail is probably going to launch the Mail client, which in Ubuntu should be Thunderbird, I believe, and that's what it does. So it launches Thunderbird and the Star one. Okay. No, I'm going to click cancel there. Okay, and then Star. Not sure what this one does yet. Yeah, maybe it's like a configurable one. I'm not sure. I mean, this is Linux, so you have basically everything you would expect from Linux is all here. Preferences, administration, yeah, update. You can have all your Ubuntu apps and stuff, I guess. Yep. So favorites, graphics, Open Office, of course. Media player, okay. Oh, let's try opening the word processor here. Typing some stuff in. So test the keyboard out. And by the way, this is as far as it opens. It's not a 180-degree thing. Yeah, but almost 180, I guess. Yeah, the processor is definitely still slow, even though this is running Linux. Still kind of a slow processor. I wouldn't say it's as slow as the Intel Atom on a Windows Vista computer, though. So the Fujitsu U820 is definitely still slower in practice because that is Intel Atom, the first generation Intel Atom on a Windows Vista on 1 gig of RAM. This 512 megs of RAM, but it's running Linux and it's running ARM processor. So I think this is not fast, but it's slightly more speedier than the Intel Atom still, right? Because Linux has less junk than Windows does. Okay, so let's try typing something. Oh, okay. Can definitely do it. Okay, so yeah, just some basic typing. So yeah, that's Open Office. That's definitely here. Okay, so that definitely works. Typing experience, like I said, not great, but definitely passable for a computer of this size, right? And by the way, this is a TFT screen, no IPS back then, so the colors look a little bit washed out. That's why the wallpaper looks a little bit washed out when I do it from this angle. But that is what it is. So yeah, so that's it. That's the Sharp Netwalker, and just wanted to show you guys a bit about the U820 and the Sharp Netwalker because I know a lot of you guys probably have never seen these two before, and they've been just sitting around, and I haven't really showed them off for quite a few years. So there you go, guys. Let me know if you guys have any questions about either of these two. They're both pretty unique computers, very small portable computers around the same size as a micro PC, but both pretty unique in their own ways. So let me know if you have any feedback in the comment section below, and thanks for watching. Yeah, the Fujitsu Lifebook U820 and the Sharp Netwalker, both from around 2009, and both from Japan. So this was back when Japan kind of ruled the UMPC world, right?